Today we're going to revisit some information that we had on a previous video probably a month and a half or 2 months ago on the type of food that you can keep long term without having to refrigerate it. It's very nutritious food. It's very lightweight, so it's suitable for an emergency pack, a hunting trip, taking some out to the stand with you. It's very lightweight, it's very compact, and it's a lot better than a chocolate bar, which gives you a sugar high for an hour and then all of a sudden you crash. This is loaded with good protein food, complex carbohydrates, and it's going to take you along through the day with good energy. As far as a 72-hour bag goes, or even longer term, again, you can carry a lot of food in a fairly small package. For example, you can carry enough food to have 3 or 4 decent meals, or 3 or 4 days of meals for probably a pound of weight. So let's carry on. This is another recipe for chili. I'm not going to include the entire recipe in here because I've done that before. This is a slightly different version, only because it's using ground beef rather than chunk meat. But this is also for our supper today. The reason I like to do this without the beans or anything in it is because it allows you to customize a meal or have a variety of different meals simply by what you add to it later on. For example, when you rehydrate this, if you've got a small bag of rice with you, then you can have a meal that has rice in it. If you have a small bag of a pasta with you, then of course you can make up the pasta and have the meal over top of that. It could be anything like that, or even beans. You can take your white navy beans, you can cook them up, dehydrate those, and then you have a third type of meal. So it's still the same basic mothership is what I like to call it. The chili portion of it, or a stew if you wish, is what I classify as the mothership, and then whatever you add to it, you can get some variety from it. So you've still got the basic meal, but it's not identical every time you have it. So that just changes it up a little bit, and especially if you're in a difficult situation, you're having a problem where you're stuck out for 72 hours or more, then it's just again a bit of a morale booster. So here we are taking our chili and we're putting it on. Now what I'm using here, this dehydrator came with a couple of the plastic trays. Sometimes you do fruit roll-ups or anything that's a little bit wet or that would fall through the grate of the grill work on a regular tray. If you don't have a dehydrator that has that, you can easily enough cut them out from a piece of parchment paper or whatever. And I'm spreading this out. You want to spread it out quite thinly. The temptation is to put more in there and get more done, but the problem is it doesn't dehydrate as evenly or as quickly if it's if you've got too much in a lump. So you want to spread it around. As you can probably notice there, the little scoop that I'm using has slots in it, and I'm doing that because I'm really not wanting to get very much of the broth in here. Since we're dehydrating this anyway, it kind of defeats the purpose. So this reduces significantly, very much like beef jerky. It takes 4 pounds of raw meat approximately to get 1 pound of jerky. So this could be several meals, and by the time you're done it fits into a tiny sandwich bag, which we'll see here in a few minutes. It's surprising how much you can put on one of these trays, and there is the possibility of 5 trays on this unit, and you can use a lot of this stuff. We put a pretty good sized cast iron pot of chili here, using about 3 pounds of ground meat at the beginning, and as you can see, when this is getting close to the end, we've just about cleaned it up for this dehydrator here. Aside from being very easy to do, because you'll probably be cooking this for your meal anyways, so you just simply make a bit more. It's also very inexpensive in terms of the equipment. You know, this dehydrator here is quite old, but you can still get you know, the basic dehydrator for probably $50 or so. And of course, you obviously can spend more than that. But the equipment doesn't have to be expensive, and really the dehydrator is the only thing that you may not already have anyways. It's super easy to do. I mean, as I said, you're cooking your supper anyways. You simply ladle it into the dehydrator, turn it on, and wait for 12 hours. So there's absolutely no technique really. So I set this up in the evening. I left it on overnight, so it's been probably 11 or 12 hours. I put it on probably a couple hours before I went to sleep and shut it off, I guess, about 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's been about 10 or 11 hours. As you can see, it's completely dried out. It's reduced in size significantly, and it's reduced dramatically in its weight. And we'll show you that here in a few minutes. I put it on a scale and just to indicate the volume that it turns into and the weight that you have. It's actually really, really efficient. One of the probably the most notable features about this whole thing is the difference in the cost. If you were to buy the Mountain House type freeze-dried dinners or any of the other brands that are the better brands, you know, they have good flavor and they do last almost indefinitely. But you're also looking at $10 or $12 or $15 for a single pouch, which supposedly has two servings in it. Still, I don't know how generous those servings are. I don't really use those, but that's a lot of money. Even if they're too generous servings, that's still an awful lot of money. You know, if you're going away for a week, or if you want to have a week's worth of supply with you, you've got to have at least one of those pouches per day. And at $12 to $15 a hit, you know, you're going to blow $100 or thereabouts, you know, for 1 week's worth of food. And it's really not any better than what you're going to do right here all by yourself. You've got good quality because you've purchased your own meat. You can use, of course, you can use organic foods, organic meats, and so on. You can also adapt to use the freeze-dried vegetables. Those things are absolutely as light as dust. You can take a whole huge bag of these vegetables for almost no weight at all. So I'm going to take 1/2 cup as a sample here, and I'm going to weigh it out, and it's as you can see, it's a very, very lightweight. It's going to mix with, now I've mixed it with 2 1/2 cups or 1 full cup of the boiling water, and I did that because normally I have a little bit of rice or something in it, and it was just a habit. But usually it's 1 to 1. So if you're going to use only this, you want 1/2 cup of the dehydrated food, in this case the chili, and 1/2 cup approximately of the boiling water. And that usually gives you a great consistency. What I would normally do is have one of those thermoses that you can buy, and they're very short and bigger in diameter, so that you can put soup and stew and so on in it and get it out more easily. And that would help you carry this, keep it warm. You could preheat it or load it with the hot water initially and carry it with you, and it would be ready when you want. Now here we're rehydrating this, and I've passed it a bit, but the phone shows it was in this water for less than 6 minutes, and it's just in a glass dish with a plate over the top of it, so there's no thermal insulation value to that at all, and yet it still did the job and did it quite well. As you can see how runny it is because you know, I actually put too much water in it out of habit, because I normally put rice in. Now it does, because of the water, it seems to reconstitute a little bit blander in flavor than it usually comes out or starts with, so you might want to compensate for that when you're making it. So here we are, only 3.85 ounces for our whole bag of dehydrated chili. Not bad. I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of The Cast Iron Chef. If you've enjoyed this or just found it entertaining, please like, If you know anybody else who would be interested in this type of thing, I would very much appreciate it if you shared it with them. And please subscribe if you haven't already. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you all down the trail. Thanks a lot.